Josephine Ahnelt, you're a filmmaker from Vienna, and recently you developed vegan film material. Can you explain how, or what was the idea to come up with a vegan film material? What's so bad about the traditional analog film material?
Yeah, so I became a vegan in 2012. Yeah, due to my father's health reason, I researched about veganism and first just did it as an experiment, but then found out about sort of the whole holistic way how veganism is just good for the earth, for the animals, for our health, and it just all made sense. And yeah, so like 8 years ago, I went vegan. But 12 years ago, I went to the Friedel Kubelka Film School, where there's analog film being taught, and yeah, I fell in love with Super 8 and 16 millimeter film, and have been making films on that medium ever since. And yeah, for me, veganism is not only about yeah, your nutrition, but it's also about it's a lifestyle. And so I try to not invest anything into non-vegan products or buy maybe secondhand. But yeah, film emulsion contains gelatin. It's made out of the bones of cows usually. And that's something where my love for the analog medium and my medium of choice for my way of filmmaking sort of came in a yeah collapse with my other yeah ways of life. And yeah, I've felt conflicted ever since. And then last year I made a decision to research myself, to create a sort of prototype myself that is 60 millimeter vegan film. And yeah, I am also part of the Film Co Vienna, which is a film lab in Vienna that I co-founded in 2008. And we always had international lab meetings where we met up with all the other do-it-yourself labs all around the world. And it was there that I met my collaborator in this project, Esther Urlus. And she published 2 books on do-it-yourself handmade film emulsion and was sort of our resident expert in the theme. And so I contacted her and told her about my ambition to create vegan 16 millimeter version.
But I suppose in the history of cinema, there have been also other film materials around, just thinking of nitrofilm and other materials. Had there been other materials not using animal products, or is there just the only film material containing, animal products?
Yeah, in the 50s and 60s, there's been like research of creating like an alternative to gelatin in the film emulsion, but there hasn't been anything found that would be like of equal quality. The problem is like there's so many alternatives when you look for like cooking alternatives with vegan film, but all these alternatives that we have like agar-agar or pectin, they wouldn't work for creating analog film because the substance that is the gelatin in the film emulsion, it's like a binder that binds the emulsion to sort of the plastic striped film, and it has a very creamy texture that's very very flexible with heat and with chemicals. And also the creamy texture, it makes it so that the silver halides that are like the light sensitive silver halides that create the image, that they evenly distribute in the image. And that's something that's just not with the conventional ways of you can't really reproduce it. And also we want the film to be able to sustain time, to be able to be conserved for 100 years or more. And so that's also something where things just degrade too quickly if you use something else. What me and Esther used was PVA, polyvinyl alcohol. That was not the ideal choice. We found a recipe from that times in the 60s and recreated this with the means that we had. And yeah, it's not ideal because, of course, if you go with a vegan alternative, veganism is usually always in the same thing with creating something that's sustainable, which is good for the planet. And polyvinyl alcohol is plastic, so it's the stuff that you usually want to get out of your plastic bottles and stuff. So we don't really want to create more of it. But in this experiment, it was important to us to make sort of an example that it's possible to create a vegan alternative. And so we made a successful test run with this polyvinyl alcohol. Next step would, for example, be to try experiment with things like there's something called CPLA. That's crystallized polylactic acid that's made out of corn and sugar beets. And that's the stuff that we now see popping up everywhere. That's these plastic containers that are biodegradable, where it's plastic, but it's a sort of a different kind of plastic that's biodegradable. And it would be interesting in the next steps for the project to see if maybe the PVA could be, switched out with PLA. Yeah.
So we may be even able to eat the final result, right?
Maybe.
Without harm.
It would be interesting, but then it comes in play again. If I can eat it, will it really resist 100 years? So it's always the balance of that. But yeah, it would be nice.
But the results are stable so far, so chemically, and so do you have any idea with regard to storage of films, how long you may keep the results stable?
I think the results are pretty stable. I have the results here next to me. I brought it. The funny thing is that the results, they get like a greenish tint. Usually with handmade emulsion, the results get like a yellowish tint. And this one, has a greenish tint to it. We don't know exactly why, but it's kind of funny that it's associated with a vegan film. But it's stable so far. It's just about conserving it in good conditions. And the problems with the results we have is more about that the results are still very uneven, and the film is not very light sensitive, and so and there's also pepper stains. But pepper stains, like uneven results, pepper stains, and less light sensitivities are often a sign of handmade emulsion, but not to this extent. Usually you can make handmade emulsion with gelatin and you'll get less light sensitive light, some pepper stains. But with this, it's pretty intense, which you can see on my video online how the results look. Because of this texture that's so ideal, this creamy texture and gelatin that really distributes evenly. And we have an image, and that was our sort of goal, but it's far from something that could be commercially distributed as an alternative. But I feel like with means like Kodak, I feel like they could get there if they would,
So the long-term perspective is to avoid any chemicals in that process, because I know that some labs are experimenting with flower seeds, etc., in order to develop things. So, I mean, is it really possible to avoid any chemicals to create 100% sustainable film material and process?
I would sure hope so. Yeah, I've also seen results made with red wine and coffee that look really beautiful. It's yeah, what I've heard, it's just not as durable, and sometimes the results are less perfect, like just the evenness of the material. But I definitely hope that would be something that research could lead to. So, and also it's like a question, like for me, for example, if they would bring a vegan alternative on the market that is maybe suboptimal to the non-vegan version, I would choose the vegan version still. So I feel it's more about maybe getting a reliable product. I think it's really hard at this moment to get something that would really be of equal quality, but I sure hope so that we can get there. And there are a lot of ways to experiment with that.
And the idea is to share that knowledge, to share the results, and to create common knowledge about vegan film materials. So it's not the idea to create your own whatever rights own product. So it's really a thing that you want to share with others, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Because for me, I'm not an expert in how film is put together. I'm like see myself more as an artist who two of my sort of core values of working are sort of getting against each other, and there are a lot of vegetarian, vegan filmmakers who feel the same. And yeah, I would encourage anyone who wants to experiment in that field to do experiments, and please share them, and to watch the video that I put on YouTube, how we went about it, and yeah, go for it and see the results. Like I do feel like in this day and age, it's actually hard. Like big companies like Kodak, they are struggling with the certain and so to create your own little label of film, it's almost impossible, I would say, to succeed at the moment, to have like your little mini label, because it's such a complex to just create a few meters of film. It's such a complex process, and it takes so much time. Like this movie, it's like we took a couple of hours to create these 20 meters of film. So for me, the goal would almost be more like to create more momentum for vegan film alternatives, to show that people are interested in it, that people try to create this for themselves, and therefore have big companies like Kodak see that and take notice of it, and maybe really consider, oh, this could be a viable option for us to get behind again, and maybe try to create something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what will be the next step in your itinerary? What are the next projects in order to develop this process?
Yeah, I'm currently just sending this movie to festivals, trying to get a bit the message out there. And the next step would be maybe applying for some crossover artist science research project that gives some funding, or to apply for a university grant. For example, I heard from the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna that they might be interested in funding a master study in focusing on this. And so something like that, where, for example, this PLA version could be a next step, because I feel the PVA version, it works, and I love that we have this prototype, but it definitely wouldn't be the best way to promote it, definitely, because it's just made out of plastic and just not the best environmental option. So that was the next step, trying to make another version that's biodegradable, but at the same time durable for many, many years. That's another tricky thing to balance. Yeah.
Okay, I wish you durable results, and thank you very much for the conversation, and looking forward to see the results.
Thank you.